Okay, so today we are talking about an organization that is near and dear to my heart, Special Olympics. My grandma, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, founded the Special Olympics in 1968, and it is the world's largest sports organization for children and adults with intellectual disabilities. Today, we are going to talk to two people all about Special Olympics, the work that Special Olympics does for early childhood education and support, and for their new app and the community that they offer and provide to support families. We are going to be talking to Rebecca, who works with Special Olympics as an early childhood expert, and also to Jennifer Pittman, who is the manager of Healthy Families. And she has been a Special Olympics family for about 7 years now, and her son Shalom has intellectual disabilities, and so she will talk to us about her experience. And I'm really excited. So here we go. I am so excited, as I mentioned to you, that both of you are here today to talk about one of my favorite organizations, Special Olympics. My grandma founded Special Olympics, and I have grown up going to so many different Special Olympics games, meets, events, and just met so many incredible people and families and parents. And they do so much, which is why, Rebecca, I'm so excited that you're here to talk about the new app. And then, Jennifer, that you're here to talk about your experience being involved in Special Olympics as a parent, because that is just amazing. And I'm so excited for people to hear that point of view as well. So, welcome to both of you. And thank you so much for being here. I know there's many years here of Special Olympics love present right now.
You included, and Catherine, thank you so much for having us here. We're just really appreciate the platform and the opportunity to share more about our Special Olympics work and some of the things that we're doing in early childhood.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about, early childhood and all of the work that you guys are doing to focus on that part of, all the work that Special Olympics does. So, Rebecca, why don't we start with that? And then, Jennifer, we can talk about your introduction to Special Olympics as well.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you again. I think, as you know, as a mom, those early years are so critical for young children in terms of development and those access to opportunities to support growth and learning and development. And unfortunately, we know that most children with intellectual and developmental disabilities around the world don't have access to those types of programs that would really be able to support they need that additional support in many cases in learning how to move and think critically and language skills. So, that kind of additional support is really critical for children with IDD. And so, many years ago, almost 20 now, we started a program called Young Athletes, which really focuses on bringing children 2 to 7 with and without IDD together through play. I think we all know the importance and the power of play and that ability to use play in both a fun and enriching way. And we focus on that with young athletes to develop cognitive, social, and motor skills and really bring to life the opportunity for families, teachers, educators all around the world, the community, to see the power of play and to help children with IDD grow.
One of the things I really loved growing up about this angle of what Special Olympics does was that it really allowed for both people with both intellectual disabilities and without intellectual disabilities to interact and play together and create bonds and friendships by really just getting out there and playing sports and being active together. And so many people that I grew up with that were able to attend these games and events always walked away with getting so much out of these interactions. Can you talk a little bit about what people's responses have been like for people who might not grow up being involved or aware of Special Olympics because they might not know someone directly who has intellectual disabilities, but they're able to be a part of these events, and also for people who want to be a part of these events?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think, the unique thing about Special Olympics, we have our major games, we have our big
Yeah.
events that many people might know about, but Special Olympics is really every day around the world and is a local opportunity to participate. And you mentioned the inclusive piece, and I think it's so important, especially at the youngest age, of building those opportunities for children with and without IDD to play together, because when you're 2 and 3 and 4, you don't have behaviors, you don't have beliefs about what a child with intellectual disabilities can or cannot do. And so, what we can do is really create these positive experiences so that when children grow up, they're learning, they're appreciative, they're connected, and wanting to engage with their peers with IDD as they grow up together. I also think as we think about the early childhood age, it's really important to think inclusively because many children might not be diagnosed until 6, 7, sometimes even 8 years old, just based on access to services and chances to get an official diagnosis. And so, if we're not getting children into services until 6 or 7 once they receive an official diagnosis, there's so much developmental time we're missing. And so when we focus on play for all children, it really gives us a chance to make sure that every child can benefit. And so that's in our in-person programming, it's in our virtual programming, and really focused on what are the needs of the individual child, both with and without IgD, and how can we help them grow together.
When you're saying that a lot of people are not getting diagnosed until they're older, 6 years old, 7, 8 years old, can you talk about what the reasoning behind that is, as far as resources go, and then also what listeners can do to help in that?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple of different reasons why that diagnosis can be delayed. For children with autism, it tends to be just because of the way it presents. The general age for diagnosis is around the age of 5, though it can be done as early as 2. But sometimes children aren't presenting until later, based on some of the specific behaviors, language development, some of those kinds of things. But globally, we really see that delay in receiving a diagnosis, often because of access to providers who have specialization in developmental pediatrics or any of those kind of specific medical fields, and access to those specialists are really hard to come by, and families often wait 6, 9, 12 months on wait lists to get into some of these specialists, and that's even here in the United States. And so, as your listeners are thinking about, what does this mean to me and how can we support, I think really thinking about a couple of key things. One is really looking at what support can you provide your child, and we'll maybe talk about our app in a little bit, but the resources that we can provide directly to families to support the growth and development of their child through play at home. And so there's a lot of things that we can do together right now before a child gets an official diagnosis to really support any delays or missed milestones. We also need your voice as we think about advocating to our health providers, our health community, early childhood services to make sure that diagnosis and protection of children is really critical and at the forefront of what we look to do.
I had that same experience where I had to jump through loopholes of wait lists and everything to get services for my child, just simple therapy services for him. And like she said, it's sometimes because you don't have a trusted provider or you have insurance wait lists. And the way that I overcame that is by connecting with providers in my community and asking them if they have any openings for my child. And once I received the okay from them, then contacting insurance companies and asking if we can just update his file instead of staying on a wait list.
So Jennifer, I want to hear about your experience and your story. You're a mother and you're also a mother of a child with intellectual disabilities. So when we hear Rebecca talk about the work that Special Olympics does to provide education and services starting from a very early age for children. You didn't have that experience. And as you mentioned, you had to jump through loopholes. And, as parents, we go to the pediatrician when around our child's birthday to get, their wellness check. And we really check in with our pediatrician and hope that they'll be able to give us guidance or wisdom on milestones that need to be met, the just development and growth of your child. So, Jennifer, I want to hear about your experience because I think so many parents can relate to your experience and also having struggles with how to get resources to help your child.
Yeah, I wish I had Special Olympics or knew about Special Olympics then. But, with my child, he was around 2 years old. His name is Shalom, and he's 17 now. I can't believe that
Wow.
time went by so fast.
Yeah.
But I noticed that he wasn't speaking. He was running around, bright and bubbly personality that he has, but he wasn't saying typical words that you may hear from a 2 year old, like mama or dada or anything like that. And so that took me to reaching out to my state agency where I was guided to developmental pediatrician. And for us, we got 2 rounds of evaluations because the first time we weren't too clear on the results of that. So we decided to get a second opinion when it was offered to us. And from there, I didn't have a roadmap to tell me where to go next. Advocacy jumped in, and I had to push and fight and figure out what to do next for my son. And so from there, like I said, I connected with my community. I learned about providers. I learned from my neighbors what were the best providers in the area and used that opportunity to avoid wait lists with the insurance companies.
Wow. And as a parent, you have these, gut feelings of, okay, my child isn't maybe meeting certain milestones and wanting to be proactive and go through your community to get resources and support. What was that experience like for you to get your child tested and receive a diagnosis for your son?
Mixed emotions, mixed feelings. You don't know I don't know. You don't know exactly how to feel at a moment like that. But I feel like the advocator in me just kind of jumped out and I had to push. I mentioned advocating, and I think that's a message that I would like your audience to leave with is that we really have to be advocates. One valuable lesson that another parent taught me is that you can't always put the future of your child in the hands of a provider. So we are the expert of our child. We're their biggest advocates. And so just having to push through challenging times, through mixed emotions, through being a young mom, being a new mom, you have to push through that.
I think a lot of parents also feel unsure or scared when it comes to their child receiving a diagnosis like this. I think when you are aware of an organization like Special Olympics, you're provided with comfort and reassurance and um, a sense of belonging and community. Can you talk about maybe the feelings that came with receiving your son's diagnosis and then the support that has come with being introduced to a community like Special Olympics?
Yes, absolutely. I think you said it. It's like at that time, I felt like I was alone. You have a sense of being in isolation. And I didn't know who to go to. I so happened to come upon people in my community that had shared experiences. But I feel like with Special Olympics, there's a community already there waiting for parents and families like mine, and those shared experiences are even stronger than they are just running into someone, in your community by happenstance. And so not only is the people are there that have that shared experiences, but the resources are there, like our Young Athletes app, like our Young Athletes program. Those resources are there ready for you to use and to give you a guide or a roadmap to what to do next and how to handle your children at home on your own if needed.
For me growing up, my grandma always was getting her grandchildren involved in every single event Special Olympics was putting on that was possible for us. She was always wanting us to play with, as she called her special friends, to always have moments of interacting, playing, doing sports, and also learning. And I always, especially as I grew up, would always leave Special Olympics events and interactions feeling so happy and also just so excited for all of the athletes and for all the families. And as I got older, I always would leave every interaction with Special Olympics families really with just feeling in a state of awe for all of the parents. And I think that you go to these big, Special Olympics games and even the small local events. And the parents, for me, especially now as a parent myself, the parents are everything. They pour their lives, their love, their support into their kids, their children with and without intellectual disabilities. And I am always just in such awe and admiration of, families like yours, Jennifer, that have a child with intellectual disabilities and just are there to advocate, support, and are part of all of the amazing things that Special Olympics does and puts on. And I'm so grateful that you're here and talking to us today because it's it's just amazing. I remember going to, World's Games when I was growing up and just the families that travel all across the world to support their children, to get them to, you know, interact in these games, to be athletes, to just it's amazing work. And I want to talk about the app because the app has been so helpful for families like yours, Jennifer and Rebecca. I know that you're really passionate about this app as well. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing your experience. I think, our movement still continues to be led by your grandmother's tenacious spirit and passion. And,
Yes.
I think she would be thrilled with all the work that we're doing now and the continued fight to make sure that parents and our athletes have the resources and supports that they need.
Mhm.
Because I think that really drives us every day and making sure that we can do the best for people with intellectual disabilities.
Absolutely.
But as we talked about earlier, the Young Athletes Program, we've seen such amazing success with the program and we know it works. We've seen children who participate in the program experience 7 to 9 months of motor development skills over just 2 months period. So that's a huge growth. It's supporting that development, but the ability to be in every school in every community around the world is really challenging, and so we wanted to help bring that same intervention, that same program, directly to families in the homes. And so we created a free mobile app that's available now to any of your app stores where you can search for apps, and it really tries to create a customized experience for families. So you heard from Jennifer, and I think many families will hear that early time of diagnosis can be a really negative one. You find families are hearing from providers things like "I'm sorry" or "Your child won't accomplish something." And if you think about other early childhood apps, a lot of that right now really says something's wrong. Your child's delayed. You need to be worried. And what we want to do is create a positive experience that just focuses on where your child is and supports development from there. So the app provides personalized activities based on where the child is developmentally and helps progress them forward. It really focuses on just playing with your child in a developmentally focused way. And we hear from families so regularly, like, we don't know what to do. How do we play in a way that's
Mm.
really meaningful and valuable? But for the child, they just see play. And we're seeing really great results and we're really excited to bring that to families. The other piece I'll just highlight from the app is that connection piece. So Jennifer mentioned the feeling of isolation, the feeling of like who else is going through this journey. The app actually features a function where you can connect with families in your area, and families who have a similar diagnosis or maybe just missed milestones. And you can connect with those families, understand, hey, what's been your journey? Where can we connect and learn more together? And how can we start to build some of that community virtually, so that we can grow together. And the app is called the Young Athletes app, if you look it up in the app stores.
Awesome. So the Young Athletes app is really there to support parents in their child's diagnosis and experience, and also allow the parents to feel supported in how to interact with their child, how to build a community, how to feel supported as a parent, and also get support for their child along the way. And I think that it's so true that, the feeling of isolation is such a big one when it comes to your child not necessarily meeting certain milestones or feeling like you have a diagnosis from a pediatrician, and being able to get community in an app, since all of us have these devices, being able to gain a community for yourself, for your family, and also for your child is such a huge gift. Jennifer, can you talk a little bit about your experience with the app, and gaining a community and support for yourself and for your family?
I would like to add that the app is for children of all abilities. And so I'm a mom of three. I have, Shalom, who is 17. I have a 9-year old, and I'm the one that decided to start all over again. And now I have a 9-month old.
Oh
And
my
so, like,
gosh.
yeah, it's like a child in every stage of life
I
right
love
now.
that.
And it's a beautiful thing. And I could say, like Rebecca said, sometimes they tell you to play with your children and you don't know where to start. Sometimes this app is a perfect place to start because it gives you activities that you can do with your children. For example, it may say sing a song, and it'll say, for example, sing Wheels on the Bus with your child, and it gives you a guide, a direction to go. And so I haven't yet used the feature with the to connect with families, but I can say that it's great to know that when I need it, if Jenna was ever to have a diagnosis, I know where I can go to get that access to other families in my community, directly in my community. So I appreciate that feature being available if needed.
I love that. Um, can you also, talk about maybe for families who might be listening, or for people who might know another family that has just received a diagnosis for their child that feels almost paralyzed in fear of, what does this mean for my family? What does this mean for my child? They're not going to have the life that I maybe envisioned, and be filled with fear. Can you talk about that feeling, and also words of encouragement?
Absolutely. That feeling is real. So first I
Mm.
want to validate that feeling. Like you're going to have fear, you're going to be afraid of what's for the coming for the future, but just like I led with a message of advocating, I want to lead with a message of hope. There's hope. You may see your child one day and they're not speaking, and then the next day they might be like my child who's 17 years old and says I love you every day and shows signs of affection through his words, which he didn't have at 2 years old. And so just because you see your child in one place now don't mean that years down the road it's going to be the same way. So have a sense of hope alongside that fear, because like I said, it's real. And know that with support like Special Olympics, like the Young Athlete app, and other supports in your community, that there's hope that your child can grow and develop, strengthen in their development through time. So I think that's very important. I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna validate anyone who's listening feelings and let them know that fear is real, but hope is there.
Catherine, can I just add, I think acknowledging that you're not alone too. I think because it feels like such an isolating experience when you get that diagnosis. And one of the things that we've really expanded in Special Olympics is that support from the time of diagnosis, which could be birth, all the way through that early childhood period. But recognizing that there's a community who loves you and wants to support you and wants nothing but the best and the amazing achievements that we anticipate seeing from people with IDD.
Amazing. Jennifer, what has your son's experience been like with Special Olympics?
Oh, Shalom is he's a Special Olympics athlete. It's been I feel like it's been about 6 years, but he competes in track and field. And he runs the 200. He does the long jump, and he sometimes do the 2x4 and 4x2. I'm sorry, 4x4 and 4x2 relays. His experience has been amazing. And I think the biggest thing is connecting with other athletes, finding friends that he can, it's almost like they have their own way of communicating, whether it's with words or with actions. And that sense of competitiveness gives this a confidence. It gives a level of confidence. It boosts his confidence and understanding that sometimes we only see their limitations, but you can do some amazing things through competition, through sport with other athletes in Special Olympics. So his experience has been amazing. He looks forward to practice starting every year. And also there are other opportunities outside of the sports season where they Special Olympics may come to his school or have some community events that he connects with year round. So it's been amazing.
How did you get introduced to Special Olympics?
Well, I got introduced through my community. So Special Olympics often has a campaign with Publix grocery stores here, and they have a booth set up as you walk into the grocery store. And we knew that, I don't know what it is about sports, but I feel like sports is like that go-to extracurricular activity when you're trying to get your kids out of the house and into, doing something active. And so when I saw that booth and we know we wanted to connect him with sports, Special Olympics was just the right place because we've had challenges of finding inclusive environments for him when it comes to sports. And so we knew that that would be a welcoming place for him. So that's how I got introduced to them. And I feel like maybe a few months later, we were at our first track practice.
Wow, that's incredible. And as a parent in the Special Olympics community, what has that been like for you to be introduced to other families in your area and also to just watch your son thrive in a sport and in a community like Special Olympics?
Yeah, connecting with other families have been awesome. We are able to not just have conversations about what we're there for, the sport, but also have conversations about school or resources or other things that are going on in the community as we're sitting there watching our kids, participate in activities. And I think that you get a sense of pride. You're so proud of all that they can accomplish, through a sport. You get a sense of, support from other families. You get a sense of, I don't know, it's kind of unbelievable. Like I said, sometimes we often sit in their limitations, but that's our opportunity to open up to them, for them to open up to us and show us what they're capable of.
Amazing. I love that. Well, I mean, Rebecca, what did you were going to say
I'm
something?
sorry, I was just gonna say,
Yes.
I think one of the unique things about Special Olympics, and everyone thinks about Special Olympics as a sports organization and offering the amazing sports opportunities that we do. But in addition to that, we really focus on not only the engagement and connection of families, but some of the education opportunities. And so, I believe Special Olympics is behind maybe healthcare providers is the second place that families go to get education and information. And that could be everything from the IEP process and navigating schools to health conditions that might be at a higher prevalence for people with IDG. And so, really trying to use family education and our family health forums as a chance for us to support families understand those challenges that they might not have access to information and might be more specific to our community and really bridge that gap with information and connection to educated professionals.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I'm grateful to be in the position of managing our family health education opportunities. It's another way to connect with families other than going to sports practices and things like that that I've already mentioned. And it's just a welcoming space where families can connect with one another and other health professionals in their communities. Typically, in that space, our health professionals are facilitators where they're offering health education on several different topics to the families. And so families come with their questions in mind, and this is an opportunity for them to get answers to some of the questions they may have.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so excited for people to be able to have the support, always through Special Olympics, but especially through the convenience of the app. I think that that's such a huge gift to be able to give to families and to just people who are looking for resources and tips and community, and support for themselves and for their families. So, thank you both so much. Jennifer, it was so amazing to hear about your experience as a Special Olympics parent, and all the amazing work and support that you're giving to your family and to your son. And Rebecca, thank you so much for explaining everything that Special Olympics is doing and for your longstanding support in Special Olympics. I'm so grateful, and I'm always so excited to be able to have a conversation around Special Olympics and to see that everything that my grandma worked so hard to bring to life is still thriving and making such a difference. So thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Catherine. We appreciate it so much and
Mhm.
just have had a wonderful conversation. So thank you for the chance to share.